thinking life either isn't worth, it was a pretty dark thought. It was life either isn't worth living or it is worth living. And I have to believe that I can get over this. And I've got to do everything in my power to at least try.
Mm.
And it was in that moment that I decided that I had to tell somebody. And I had been hearing that inside my spirit for years, that the first step was to tell somebody. And I was praying and praying and praying and praying. And I just kept getting this tiny voice inside that was like, you've got to tell somebody, you've got to tell somebody. And I had sworn on my life that I would never tell a soul that I was struggling. And I kept hearing that voice. And I remember saying, God, I will do anything except tell somebody that I'm struggling. I do think healing from this, I think we are always developing. I think we're always growing. I think we're always evolving. I think mental health is a lifelong journey that, needs our support, just like our physical health needs our support our entire life. So does our mental health. But I do believe that there is full healing from these struggles with food and body image.
Mhm.
And what I mean by that is I do think along the journey, there are levels to freedom and ease in your relationship with food that you will achieve. And for me, at one point, going from counting calories or being on a meal plan to understanding flexible dieting and having this idea that I could eat whatever foods I want as long as they fit within my macros, that was a step towards
Mm.
greater freedom. Until it wasn't, until I
Right.
was exhausted from weighing, tracking, and measuring every gram of protein, carb, and fat. But it was a step. It was a step closer to freedom in my journey than, having a meal plan that I could only have 20 different foods on. So
Mhm.
there's levels to this and there's layers to healing. But I think that getting to this point where you're no longer triggered into binge and emotional overeating is entirely possible.
What I struggle with gray area. And meanwhile, I
Mm,
have a podcast about mental health, which is all gray area. But
totally.
with this, like I so crave like a finish line,
Mm,
and I think mostly because I feel like wherever that finish line is, like
mhm.
I just want the relief of
Yes.
getting this
Oh,
out of the way. Like
totally, Christy.
it's in my
Totally.
way
Yeah.
because I wake up and think about it. I
Yeah.
and I was saying this, I think, to someone last week, or maybe it was my therapist. I don't know, where it's like with so many aspects of my life that I'm constantly working on,
Mhm.
there is an ability to put it aside.
Sure.
But eating and your body, like you're in it 24/7 and you need to
Always.
do it every day.
Yeah.
It's
The thing that keeps people from that feeling of, I have arrived in this really peaceful place, the thing that keeps people that just like, it's in my head, I see it as this hand that's like holding the back of your shirt and you're like, come on, like let go. And you're trying to run and it's just like pulling you back.
yeah.
It's the body image struggles.
Yeah.
Because if we can make peace in our body, our relationship with food becomes so much easier, because our relationship with food is often driven by this fear around not being good enough in our bodies. And that is really hard in a world that is obsessed with this unrealistic thin ideal, and
Mhm.
that we're constantly being bombarded with these images from social media. And
Mhm.
you have to go through what I call the messy middle of healing to get to this place where you can be in this easy, effortless relationship with food. Because if you haven't done that and you've been controlling food for a really long time, it is like what you're doing. I use this analogy with my clients. Imagine your internal world is like a highly pressurized soda bottle, and the lid is screwed on tight. And every time you diet, every time you think a judgmental or shameful thought about yourself or your body, or you speak ill about your body, or, you're in these cycles of dieting and binging, it's like shaking this soda bottle and it's just getting more and more pressurized. And then you're like, okay, I'm going to have a free weekend, or I'm going to have a cheat day, or I'm going to, I'm going to try and listen to my body. And it's like you unscrew that bottle cap and the pressure just comes out.
Mhm.
And so it's messy, and you're eating in quantities that you're like, there's no way this is healthy. There's no way this is balanced. But if you learn to leave the cap off, the pressure eventually settles. And so I always say you're allowed to have weight loss goals. You're allowed to have aesthetic goals. You are allowed to have these things, but how about you tackle your desire to maybe build more confidence and to feel better about yourself from a multitude of angles? Because if we boil it down to the only way I'm going to feel better about myself and the only way I'm going to build confidence is if I lose weight, we're really shortchanging ourselves. And actually,
Mm.
we're not even allowing ourselves to access those very things, because have you ever lost weight, not felt good enough, and then you gained weight, and then you looked back at pictures and you're like, why the heck did I not feel good enough then?
Only a
Like,
thousand times.